reading from the Holy Gospel according to John. Jesus raised his eyes to heaven and said, Holy Father, keep those you have given me true to your name, so that they may be one like us. While I was with them, I kept those you have given me true to your name. I have watched over them, not one is lost, except the one who chose to be lost. And this was to fulfill the scriptures. But now I am coming to you, and while still in the world I say these things to share my joy with them to the full. I passed your word on to them, and the world hated them, because they belong to the world, no more than I belong to the world. I am not asking you to remove them from the world, but to protect them from evil one. They do not belong to the world any more than I belong to the world. Consecrate them in the truth. Your word is truth. As you sent me into the world, I have sent them into the world. And for their sake, I consecrate them, so that they too may be consecrated in truth. The Gospel of the Lord. Lord, guide and provide what I have to say. May it not lead your people astray. Instead, use my unworthy words to show the way. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, I pray. Amen. During the week, we celebrated the feast of St. Matthias, and today we use the same reading because St. Matthias is the one who replaced Judas. Now, I know Judas' story is an unfortunate and tragic story, but it still remains an essential part of the Easter story, the Passion story, the story of the economy of salvation. We shall always remember Judas. I remember as a boy, on Good Friday in the morning, every area will stage the flogging of Judas. I don't know if some of you remember it. But we will make banana branches and banana stems into a human being, and we will flog Judas. But of course, since then we have grown more in consciousness of that. We have to be more understanding. What happened to Judas is this. What he had to do was part of the salvation history. And that is because it is tied to the death and resurrection of Christ. His action of betrayal is part of what was destined to happen. My question is, was his suicide necessary? Taking of his life, was it necessary? The death of Christ was, or the sacrifice of Christ, whatever way it was going to happen, was it going to be through death or through some other means, was part of our salvation story. So Christ's sacrifice and passion and death and resurrection is part of our salvation history. Then my question today is, was the death of Judas necessary? I don't think so. We consider the difference between Judas and Peter. And we see this all the time. Judas and Peter did more or less the same thing, similar things. Betrayal of Christ. Judas was a bit more active. He went and told the people where Christ would be in Jerusalem. Christ had a band of 12 people. The soldiers couldn't catch Christ in public because if they did, then there would be insurrection and mutiny. So he had to be in private. And they needed somebody who would know where Christ is privately, like those people who inform other people to kidnappers. You know where your family member is, you know where they go, you know how they move. And they say sometimes in these kidnapping things, it is somebody in the family who actually knows the movement that goes to inform the people, so that when the money comes, he also takes his cut. You have heard that story before yourselves. So that is what Judas did, unfortunately. But this is it. Did Judas hate Jesus? And people are still asking that question. Did he hate Jesus? Or was this the problem? That Judas knew that this was the Son of God. And the Son of God had power to redeem the people of Israel from the oppression that the Romans were putting down on them. And so he knew if soldiers come and arrest this man, then he's going to show his power. Like those of us who used to watch Superman 1, 2, 3, and 4. It is when people want to attack Superman that he will now change and wear that is something, and then he will react. Otherwise, he's just there doing his thing. But when they struggle, Superman will come out and act. So that is what Judas was trying to do, some people say. But it so happened that when the soldiers came, Jesus Christ became meek and did not do anything, and he was led away. And then Judas knew, I have messed up big time. And then what did he do? He did not do what Peter did. He went and took action to deaden his shame and guilt. I'm using those two words, shame and guilt, and I want to tell us the difference between shame and guilt. Today is the last day of Mental Health Awareness Week. I don't know if you're following it. It began on the 10th of May and it ends today, the 16th of May. Because what happened to Judas there was a problem, it's a mental problem. But it's a spiritual problem, yes. I know we like spiritualizing things, spirit every time, yes. But sometimes it is a mental problem. And there is a very thin line between the mind and the spirit. So sometimes something can be happening to your mind. It's just your mind. You think, oh, spirit. And then you do all sorts of things. In fact, it's a simple mental problem. And those of us who know these things, we will attack the mental side instead of going to look for solutions that are not there. Sometimes you also have medical problems, and then we spiritualize it. And I hear it time and time again. Somebody who should have gone to hospital, instead of going to the hospital, went to the prayer house. And what happened to the person? I don't want to sound as if I'm spoiling people's beliefs, or I don't know. What happened to Judas there is this. He felt ashamed of himself. But what happened to Peter? Peter felt guilty of what he had done. Difference between guilt and shame. And the simple difference is this. There are many other differences, those of us who do psychology. But I'll just bring up one difference today because I don't have time. If I steal, maybe I go to Father Cletus's room now. I know where his room is. I have access. I go and steal 1,000 naira to buy a church card, for instance. I feel guilty of the crime I have committed. So I am guilty of the sin of stealing. That is guilt. And I try to make amends for it. I take responsibility and I try to make amends for it. But what happens if I go and steal that money? And then I begin to feel ashamed of myself. The difference is this. I am no longer concentrating on the act of stealing. I'm now concentrating on me, Archibong. Archibong is a bad man. Archibong is a thief. Archibong is useless. Archibong is evil. And that is why he went to steal. Have you seen the difference? In guilt, the problem is the act itself. But in shame, the problem is who? Me. I am the sinner. And so that was a problem with Judas. Judas could not take it. He was ashamed of himself. And the only way to bring a solution is to do what? Get rid of myself in the first place. What did Peter do? When the cock crowed 3 times, they said, well, Peter did what? Peter wept. Peter wept. And when you cry, the tears go away with whatever it is you're crying about. That is why it's good to cry. Cry, let the thing go. Judas did not cry. What did he do? He said, I'll take this thing into my hands. I will go and finish this thing off. I will kill myself. So please, that is a small difference between guilt and shame. Most of the time we are guilty, but we say we are ashamed of what we did. And shame is very, very destructive. Because God did not create evil people. God created us in His own image and likeness. So we blame the sin and the sinner are different things. And that is why when we come for confession, what do we say? Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. We don't say, bless me, Father, for I am a sinner. Now, some people still say that thing. Father, bless me, I am a sinner. It is different from saying, bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I have sinned, yes, but that does not define who I am. That is not my whole story. I'm better than this. I stole, I committed this, I committed that. But no, Father, my story is bigger than this. But when I say I'm a sinner, then all my life and history and everything is tied to sin. When did this problem begin? Judas and Peter. I tell you, it begins in childhood. The upbringing of Peter, the upbringing of Judas. Judas, growing up, was taught to be ashamed of himself. And remember, they said he used to help himself from the common cause. It didn't begin today. Peter us all who have children, please help children not to be ashamed of themselves. I know we are trying to help them to be perfect, and sometimes we say things to them. But please, let us choose our words carefully. Because what we say to our children can have a mental effect on them. There is a lady who turned 80 on Tuesday, and I went to visit her, and she's telling me about her life. And she still remembers what her elder brother used to tell her when she was in her 20s. The damaging things that her elder brother used to tell to her. I think there's something she did. And the guy made her feel very ashamed of herself. And she's 80 years old and she still remembers it with pain. But also she remembers the good things that we used to tell her. When your child has stolen something, yes, be angry. Ask her to kneel down, beat her, whatever it is you do. But the next day, send her again to the market. Why would you send her again to the market the day before she stole? You're trying to restore her image. To tell her, no, you are not a thief. So I'm sending you back to the market. What you did was wrong, but you, as a person, you are my child, and I send you back to the market. And that does something to the child. Sometimes the child is on the fat side, I should know. What you tell a child because of their size does something to them when they grow up, please. Better tell the child is chubby, but you say a child is fat. I don't know why. They say somebody is fat. It does something to the mind. It's a negative connotation. And it stays with the child. Sometimes even black and fairness. It's nice to tell somebody you're fair. Tell somebody, oh, you're very black. There's a connotation to it, and the child begins to feel, there's something wrong with me. And when you begin to say something wrong with us, that is when shame comes in. I'm ashamed to show myself. Now, you can say it in a nice way. You're a proud ebony. You can call somebody ebony. Yes, I'm proud. But it's very dark, black. And even the way you say it is what transports the meaning to it. It's the way we say it, actually. But if you say it in a nice way, children are carrying these things, and I should know. I'm a big man myself. Sometimes people say, brother, and sometimes it does something to your esteem. It's about esteem. And finally, I want to thank this parish for being a parish where we accompany each other here. After Mass, you see what is happening. People are going to sit around and talk to each other. In the evenings, you see people talking to each other. Asking other people, how are you doing? How is life? That thing, how are you, is very important. If somebody had seen Judas on time, if the apostles knew what that chap was going to do, and tried to talk to him, tried to communicate with him, say, bros, where did you go? Where did you go? Or the person he went to buy the rope from, if the person only asked him, "Where are you going to? How are you? Why are you like this?" Maybe Judas would have done what? I think he wouldn't have committed suicide. So it's all about accompaniment. And one day, somebody here, he noticed I was looking depressed. And he asked me, "Father Joe, how are you today?" "Father Joe, how are you?" And he really touched me because we priests, people think they are okay. You know, your father now, so you dispense the sacraments. Everything is okay with you. Even the bishop, if you see the bishop, ask him, "Bishop Joseph, how are you today?" Even though he's blessing and blessing, "Hey, Bishop, wait, Bishop, how are you?" It might do something healing to him. And if only they did that to Judas, Judas wouldn't have died the way he was. He would have gone back to the apostles and he would have been forgiven. May God continue to bless and protect us, help our mental health, so that we do not have spiritual fears. And this country will be a better country than it is. Lord, guide and grant what I have to say. May it not lead your people astray. Instead, use my words to show the way. Through Jesus Christ our Lord, I pray. Amen. Let us rise and confess it. I believe in one God, the Father Almighty, maker of heaven and earth, of all things visible and invisible. I believe in one Lord Jesus Christ, the only begotten Son of God, born of the Father before ages, God from God, light from light, true God from true God, begotten not made, consubstantial with the Father, through him all things were made, for us men and for our salvation. He came down from heaven, and by the Holy Spirit was incarnate in the Virgin Mary, and became human. For our sake he was crucified under Pontius Pilate, he suffered death and was buried, and rose again on the third day, in accordance with the Scriptures. He ascended into heaven, and sits at the right hand of the Father. He will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead, and his kingdom will have no end. I believe in the Holy Spirit, the Lord, the Lord, who proceeds from the Father and the Son, the Holy Father and the Son is the Lord, who has spoken through the prophets. I believe in one holy and Catholic and Apostolic Church. I confess one baptism in the forgiveness of sins, and I look forward to the resurrection of the dead and the life of the world to come. This morning, for our prayer of the faithful, let us think of people who have asked us to pray for them. Many people know we come to Mass and they ask us, "Sister, pray for me." Sometimes we forget. And so, just in the silence of our hearts, just think of one person, your neighbor, your sister, your father, your husband, whoever it was, a friend who asked you to pray for the person. Being confident that even those that we have forgotten, God will also bring in their desires in the silence of our hearts. We now ask Mary, our Mother, to be with us and to bring our prayers to God as we say, "Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed is thou among women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Eternal rest grant unto them, O Lord, and let them be true. May they all rest in peace. We have made all our prayers and thoughts through Christ our Lord. Amen.